Welcome to Introduction to Copyright, a video from the Georgetown University Library. If you are creating a new work that you will be sharing with others, whether it is a thesis, dissertation, book, article, podcast, film, or multimedia project, it's likely that you'll be incorporating material created by others, such as quotations, audio, video, images, data, tables, or graphs. This video is designed to give you a better understanding of your copyright rights and responsibilities with respect to third-party materials. After viewing this video, you will have an overview of the basic principles of copyright law and the ways in which third-party materials can be used, including fair use, Creative Commons, public domain, and permission. First, let's be sure we have a shared understanding of what copyright is. Copyright is a bundle of exclusive rights granted by law to creators to protect their works. Under U.S. law, copyright protection applies automatically as soon as the work is fixed in a tangible format, such as on paper or saved electronically. This means that a work has copyright protection, even if it does not have a copyright notice or the copyright symbol. Registration of a work with the Copyright Office is also not required. A copyright owner is granted the exclusive right to reproduce, distribute, perform, and display a copyrighted work. Therefore, if you are reproducing copyrighted material and distributing it online, in print, or in any other format, and do not have an appropriate copyright exception, you may be liable for copyright infringement. In order to avoid the possibility of infringement and damages, it's critical to use third-party materials only when you have an appropriate exception to the copyright owner's exclusive rights. Copyright lasts for a very long time. For works created since 1978, the copyright term in the United States is lifetime plus 70 years. For works created before 1978 under our previous copyright law, the copyright term is more complicated to calculate. But if properly registered and renewed, the copyrights will last for 95 years from the date of publication. Before we begin looking at copyright exceptions, let's review the basic principles of copyright law. First, the creator of an original work owns the copyright in that work as soon as it is fixed in a tangible form, which includes physical formats or being saved in an electronic format. No notice or registration is required for copyright protection. Second, the copyright owner has the exclusive right to copy and distribute the work. For materials published since 1978, the copyright term is lifetime plus 70 years. And there are some exceptions to those exclusive rights. How and when you use these exceptions is what we will be discussing for the remainder of this video. First, we'll look at fair use. You've probably heard about fair use before and have used it regularly when you quote from other authors in your papers. Fair use allows the use of limited amounts of copyrighted materials for a number of different purposes, including teaching, research, and scholarship. To determine whether a particular use is fair, the law sets out 4 factors that must be weighed and balanced. This fact-specific analysis must be done on a case-by-case basis for each copyrighted work that you're considering using. First, the purpose and character of the use. Non-profit educational uses are more likely to be considered fair use than commercial uses. Second, the nature of the copyrighted work. Using factual and published materials is more likely to be considered fair than using highly creative or unpublished works. Third, the amount and substantiality of the portion taken. Using a small portion of a work is more likely to be considered fair use than using a larger portion. Fourth, the effect on the potential market for the work. A use that has little to no impact on the market will be favored over a use that has a significant impact. Unfortunately, the law does not provide specific guidance on which uses are fair and which are not. For a deeper understanding of the types of uses courts have previously determined to be fair or not fair, use the Fair Use Index provided by the Copyright Office. Here, you can browse or search for judicial decisions reviewing the limits of fair use. Here is an example of an image that I might want to use if I were writing an article about the use of space and color in contemporary art. To determine if my use is fair, I would need to evaluate each of the 4 factors using the specific facts about my use. To conclude this section on fair use, we will look at the pros and cons of using fair use. Fair use is an established statutory exception that applies to the limited use of all types of copyrighted material, so it may be used in a variety of different contexts. Teaching, research, and scholarship are specific examples of some of the purposes for which fair use may apply. The challenges with fair use are that evaluating the 4 fair use factors is subjective, and there is no formula for weighing and balancing them. This means that copyright owners may disagree with your fair use assessment, so there could be some risk involved in relying on fair use, even for teaching, research, and scholarship. The second exception we will look at is Creative Commons licensing. Creative Commons, or CC, was created in the early 2000s to respond to the fact that while some people want to exercise their exclusive rights under copyright law, others prefer to share their work with the public more freely. The idea behind CC licensing was to create a system to facilitate the sharing and use of scholarly and creative works when that is the creator's preference. Creative Commons licenses may allow for copying, distributing, remixing, and building on existing works. All works used under the Creative Commons system must include a credit to the creator of the work. This is the BY designation in all Creative Commons licenses. Other restrictions that may be put on use of CC licensed works are share alike, no derivatives, and non-commercial. There are 6 CC licenses which combine these 4 features in different ways. You can see the options on the Get a License section of the slide. You can pause the video here to read more about each of these licenses, or use the additional resources listed at the end of the video. To conclude this section on Creative Commons, we will look at the pros and cons of using CC licensed materials. The benefit of the Creative Commons system is that while these works are copyrighted, the creator has granted permission for reuse and distribution of the materials under clear rules. The primary challenge of working with CC licensed materials is that while the number of CC licensed works is constantly growing, it can be difficult or impossible to find a suitable CC licensed work that meets the needs of your project. The third exception we will consider is the public domain. Works in the public domain are works that are not protected by copyright law. Because there are no copyright restrictions on public domain materials, this means that the work may be used freely and adapted by others without a license fee or permission from the creator of the work. The 2 most common types of public domain works are works in which the copyright has expired and works of the federal government. Both of the images on this slide may be used and adapted freely without a fair use analysis, permission, or any licensing fees. Many museums, libraries, and archives clearly designate images they have determined to be in the public domain. For works of the federal government, visit this page for more information and a full list of exceptions. To conclude this section on the public domain, we will look at the pros and cons of using public domain materials. The benefit of the public domain is that these materials are free of copyright restrictions and may be used as is or adapted for your work. The primary challenge of the public domain is that it can be difficult or impossible to locate public domain materials that are suitable for your project. Also, for some works, it can be difficult or impossible to establish whether a work is in the public domain. The fourth and final exception we will consider is requesting permission to use copyrighted works. If you are incorporating copyrighted material in your project that is not fair use, Creative Commons, or public domain, you will need to get written permission from the person or organization that holds the copyright in those materials. If you need to request permission for a work, be sure to plan ahead because this can be a time-consuming process. To conclude this section, we will look at the pros and cons of requesting permission. With permission, you have explicit and clear instructions from the copyright owner about how you may use their copyrighted work in your project. The challenges of requesting permission include your request may be denied, the copyright owner may require a license fee that is not within your budget, You may not be able to locate the copyright owner, and even if you can, you might never get a response to your request. To learn more about each of the topics covered in this video, visit the websites listed on this slide. If you have questions or need more information, email librarycopyright@georgetown.edu.